Welcome back to season 2 of the Supper Talk podcast, where we have all those dinner time conversations that you still don't want to have with your family. I'm Chris, and this is my dad, Steve.
Howdy.
Today, we are not really going to solve any of the world's problems because we might be changing things up a little bit. But before we get into all that, Dad, it's summer break is over. We're back for season 2. So I'm going to ask, what's been on your plate?
Yeah, this was a busy summer for me. It's so funny. Everybody always has summer breaks, but my summer break is school, and I just finished the overlap period. So right in the middle of the semester in the summer, I'm like still doing the classes from the first term, just starting the classes from the second term, and it's 2 weeks where I've got a double class load, and it was really, really difficult. I mean, and part of it was because I was just enjoying the classes so much. Especially this one history class that I took. And
what are the classes that you have overlapping?
So I had hermeneutics, which is a theological study. And a history class that was the history of the church. And then I'm now doing homiletics, which is another theological thing, basically how to teach, and discipleship ministries. So, and of all those, the history and the discipleship are the things that I'm really interested in. But the others are classes I have to take because they're part of my program. And like the history class, I got the highest grade in that class that I have ever gotten in my entire collegiate career. I got a 99.1.
Nice.
In the class. And it was really cool because I've been using AI to help me research. And one of the first writing projects that I had that I submitted, my professor said, "Hey, I want to use the paper you submitted as an example. Is that okay?" So now my paper will get handed out to all the students in his class as this is an example of what you're trying to do. So that was really encouraging. And then after I submitted my final research paper, which is the one, this one paper was a third of my grade. It was a huge, huge research project, probably the biggest research project that I've done. And when I was done, he's like, "Hey, you really need to consider a PhD program because your research is really outstanding." So I'm sitting there, I'm like, because I've been learning to research from my AI. I've got an AI tool that has been teaching me and giving me tools to help me research better. And right away I'm getting great feedback that, what I'm doing and my writing is better too. And it's funny because it's not like I'm asking the AI to do the writing for me, but my writing is much better because I know the content and I know the material, and I'm way more organized because the AI helps me to stay organized. It says, you want to write it in this format, you want to follow this. Yeah. It looks at my my rubrics, the grading rubrics, and it's like, hey, you're not using enough of this type of citation sources. So it's telling me you need to get another book, you need to find a paper, you need to find a primary source, all the things that I need to do in order to score well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. The obviously I haven't gone to a traditional school. I've gone to a trade school, which is kind of it's got the same letters and an E. But I remember when I worked at T-Mobile once, and they had this quality measurement system that was you either got a one, two, three, four, or five. So a passing call was a three, good score was a four, and then a five was like this. Nobody had ever gotten a five before. They had never given out. That was the perfect call. You did literally everything proactively for the customer on that call. So I was given a five at one point early on in my career there, and it was this big deal, and that was the thing that made me have an opportunity to network with people. So they were moving over to this new quality measurement system where now it was measured in one through five in courtesy and concern and timely resolution and knowledge. So you had four areas that you could get one to five. So now you didn't necessarily need to have whole numbers. You could get fractional numbers. You could get a score where you had a 3.5, or maybe it was better than a four. It was a 4.25, not quite a five. So, anyways, every single site manager of every single customer service site for all of customer service are getting on this calibration call. And every single site has between 800 and 1,600 employees. And each one of the site managers has to pull one employee's call to be the demonstration call for the entire site. And they're only having each region do this. So of the entire company, there's only like three or four calls that are getting pulled. My call is the one that is getting pulled. And even better yet, my call is the one that's getting pulled as the very first call in the series of four that this entire new calibration system to organize this quality measuring system is getting set up on. So the site manager is this guy Nate, and Nate and I didn't necessarily see eye to eye on a lot of things because I've always just been loud. And he comes up to me one day and he tells me about this calibration call. And everyone was calling me by my middle name at the time, so he's calling me Sebastian. He's like, "Hey Sebastian, I gotta tell you. So we had this calibration call, and we listened to you, and yours was the call that everything was calibrated to start, and you got a 475." And I was like, "Okay, that's great. What does that mean?" Like, I have no idea. So it's not quite perfect. He's like, "No, you set the standard, and every single call after that barely met expectations. So you made me look really, really good." And I was like, "Yeah, I love when I can make other people look good because that makes me look awesome." So I can appreciate the getting your paper used as the example.
Yeah, that's it. Really, it's so funny. If you want to learn something today, it's really easy to learn
Oh, it's
something.
so easy.
But the thing that university provides is just what you just described, feedback.
Yep.
There's and professors at universities give excellent feedback. That's their job. They give feedback to people who are studying that one particular thing, and there's like I'm taking that one class, but they may be teaching that one class to four different groups over that term. So they're just giving feedback after feedback after feedback. So it's yeah, that's the only reason to pay for a university education is the feedback. And if you're going to a university and you're not getting good feedback, you need to change your university. You need to,
Yeah,
you know,
and that kind of brings up a little good point on. I think that we touched on this a little bit in the first season was the fact that I think one of the reasons that our AIs work really well for giving us feedback is because we have directed them to do that. I wind up talking to a lot of people about the initial idea of AI being helpful is, oh yeah, I'll help you with that. Yeah, I'll help you with that. I'll help you with that. Whatever. But I keep bringing up this idea of if you tell AI that you want to sell ketchup popsicles to little old ladies in white gloves, I guarantee you it's going to be like, that's wonderful. We should set up a
Yeah,
marketing plan around that.
yeah.
Uh, and that's not helpful in a practical sense.
Yeah, somebody needs to be able to say, no, no, no. There's
Yeah,
the
you
old,
need to be able to make sure that it challenges you enough. And if you're not checking yourself and you're not like going into those parameters, you're really, you could be doing some really stupid things. What is it that you're drinking today?
oh, I've got two beers up. So the one I'm drinking right now is
Double fisting non-alcoholics.
Tucker's.
Okay, what's
Uh,
Tucker's?
Tucker's is a West Coast IPA, and then this one is really really good. It is a New Zealand IPA. It's a special brew, so it's only available this time of year. So they do it every year, but because New Zealand's in upside down world, it's it's hop harvest season.
Okay.
So it's like in the fall, you get fresh hop. You'll have a fresh hop beer in the Pacific Northwest, or you can get fresh hop because normally they use hop pellets.
Yeah.
Um, but when it's harvest time, you can just get fresh hops and use the fresh hops inside the beer. So this is a fresh hopped beer, but it's completely not the season for fresh hopped beers.
The thing that I just recently got was our Albertson started carrying a couple more NAs. So we have Deschutes. They have a super stoked golden, and I like Deschutes. They have a couple of my beers that were always staple beers when I was still drinking, and they've got a Black Butte that tastes exactly like the Black Butte that I used to drink. And this one's kind of nice and sessionable. It's from Bend.
And that's interesting because you don't see many NA beers coming from traditional breweries that are brewing regular alcohol beers.
No, I've got a
They're either
buddy.
doing one or the other.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that works at a local brewery here in town, Burt's Brewing, and we talk about it all the time. Like, I would love to go down, but there's no beers for me, and they don't do hop water because there's other issues with the production line to ensure that it's a safe product for people. So you have to have a completely separate production line, and it essentially at a bare minimum doubles their cost. But then on top of that, there's additional procedures, so it more than doubles the cost just to add something that doesn't market to the same size market. Like, this is why Athletic is as successful as they are. They just were like, we're going to do one thing, and we're going to do one thing really, really well. And we're going to figure out that one thing so well that we're the top of the game. And they did.
Yeah, and it's so funny because what they do is they brew. At least this is what I believe. I mean, they try and keep it secret, but I think I know what they do. So yeah, you brew a traditional beer that has alcohol in it, but then you you warm that beer just to the temperature where alcohol evaporates and nothing else evaporates. So you're not homogenizing it, you're not boiling it, you're not doing anything like that. You just warm it and then you allow the alcohol to dissipate until it gets below 1/2 of 1%.
Okay.
And then you chill it. So the beer actually began as a normal beer. And the only thing that's different is you remove the alcohol afterwards. So there's two ways to do it. You can either try and brew without producing alcohol, which produces a very different product. The beer doesn't taste. That's what like the old
O'Doul's.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
They would brew beer, but they would inhibit the production of alcohol
Hmm.
in the brewing process, and it made a terrible beer. but this allows them to build to brew, that exact style beer the exact same way that you would brew it in a traditional brewery. But then there's an extra step in the process where you take the completed brew and de-alcoholize it, if
You know,
that's a
it's
word.
it's interesting though because the like I remember when drinking, like alcohol makes alcohol more palatable and more sessionable. And like it's funny to me that you have two beers because I can't remember the last time that I've drank two beers in a night because by the time I'm done with one, I'm like, okay, I had a beer. I had the drink that I wanted, and then I usually switch over to water because I'm satiated. And it's one of the weirder parts about NAs is they last me way longer, like way longer because I'm not, oh, I gotta have another one. And then by the time you have that second one, you're just kind of like feeling good, so you just keep it going. NAs are just like, yeah, this is good beer. Okay, what's next?
So that school's been pretty much what's on my plate, but what's on your plate? What's you been up to?
What hasn't been on my plate?
You've got a
So
lot going on.
yeah, yeah, it was kind of funny because it was absolute perfect timing for the summer break from season one, just because I had started doing a consulting for a couple of people, and I was like I built a couple websites for people, helped somebody kind of refocus their business, and I've been working with a composer to do the theme song, which is now part of this episode. Hopefully, as of the recording of this episode, I have the theme song. I'm hoping to have the intro done. We will find out later today. Um, but I've been building a website for him, working with him to get the theme song and the intro and the outro all completed. The art gallery has officially begun. It's no longer preview and soft opening. We have our first featured artist showcase, which is neat. So my buddy Derek is in the indie gallery, and he will be up for the month of July and August. And it is just his artwork. I got some new signage built, which was kind of cool. So now basically you walk into the shop and there's a QR code that you scan, and that takes you to the website that I built that has all the information about the artist and how you can contact them, what their website is, what their social media is. So that way, if you want to get a hold of them for prints or purchasing any of their original artwork, it makes it just completely easy. And then that QR code also is a place where if you're an artist and you want to have upcoming gallery space, it's easy way of getting a hold of me. So that way we can get that set up. And like having another thing in my wheelhouse is just, you know, it's fun when you have neurodivergency and AI because like I know I have a ton of bad ideas, like the whole bitch calm down thing. Yeah, that was a bad idea. I'm not going to actually pursue that. That was $40 wasted, but I've wasted $40 on other things too. But this one's a good idea. And what's interesting is how empowering AI has been to be able to make this space a reality. Because I was able to take all of the uh, design work that my graphic artist had given me previously, upload it into ChatGPT and say, I need to have a logo that's cohesive with my existing barbershop logo, and I want them to look like they are a coupled pairing, but I need it to be reflective of the art gallery that it is. And I need it to be something completely separate so that way you can see they are one unified entity, but also they're two separate things at the same time. And the interesting thing about Derek is he is going to be a part of the way that we're establishing the core business of the indie gallery. And here's kind of things that I've been doing the last couple of weeks trying to get this organized on the back end. So I'm trying to get this set up as a nonprofit. And the idea of running a 501c3 was way more appealing when it was just me doing it. But apparently, the IRS recognizes that that's a really easy way of tax evasion. So you have to have a whole board of directors and checks and balances to make sure that nefarious things don't happen. And I get that. Uh, so, so, so Derek is going to be the contribution to the artist community for the indie galleries art nonprofit. And the whole idea is trying to make art more accessible to the community at large. So the few benefits that'll happen is for artists, it's going to be a space that they will be able to have a free gallery. It's located in the barbershop, but the way that it's designed is all online. It's a white wall that has really good lighting, and it is gallery space. And everything that people see online is it is gallery space. And the fact of the matter is it is gallery space to people that are constantly coming in through those doors and are a captive audience for 45 minutes at a time. So it's a good gallery space that you can find people because wealthy people need their haircut too. Uh, and that's a reality. That's one of the reasons why my business has been able to grow with all the money that has come into Boise is because those people need to get their hair cut, and I will cut their hair. So I know that they have an appreciation for art, and it's really fun seeing all of these people actually react to this gallery space because it was just nothing but a bunch of Polaroids on the wall for such a long time. And now it's like, oh, this is cool. People are like walking around the shop looking at each one of the pieces of art, asking questions about it, trying to figure out, like, taking cards from the artist. And it's neat seeing people actually interact with the space in a way that's different than how it's been interacted with before. And this is also the first time that I get to see the thought that I had way back in November realized. Uh, this is the thing where half of my shop quit because they didn't believe in what it was that I was going to do. And now it's realized. And oh man, stick a feather in my cap and call it macaroni. Like I am, it's it feels pretty good. So that's the thing that I want to give to other people is I want to be able to give accessibility. So for artists, it's a free space, no hosting fees, no commissions, just you get to have really good marketable photos that are shared on social media that come from an established art gallery that give you in your portfolio time in an established gallery. You can charge your gallery prices the way you want to, and that's going to make it so that way that extra step of how can I get into my first gallery space, there's now a segue into that space. You can now become more established because we want to make it more established, or we want to make it more accessible for people. It's that rising tide, rise all ships. So that's the first thing that we want to do. Second thing that we'll be doing is through fundraising efforts, through art acquisitions with the artists, we'll be doing an art auction at the end of the year. And all of the money that's raised in that art auction that'll be hosted by the barbershop will go towards a local nonprofit. And it's funny because I was actually just talking to Derek yesterday, and originally what I was going to try and do is work with a local nonprofit to do something with kids in the area and youth. But he brought up this really other good idea, and I've been talking to other clients, and this is one of the coolest parts about being a barber. I know everybody. I know somebody who does a little bit of something of everything. And one of the people that I know is a guy who is the assistant principal of one of the schools here in town. And their art program has amazing artists. And I was proposing to him, hey, how do you like the idea of high school students that are excelling in their program being able to have a gallery exhibition as kind of an incentive for them to do better? Do you think that that would be something that the schools would enjoy doing? And I've never even thought that I would be able to do cool stuff like that in the community. But now having a nonprofit in the shop gives me the accessibility to do cool stuff like that, which is just help giving confidence to kids. So if that's something that I can do on a regular basis, then the fundraising, what kind of money would we want to fundraise for people? And we were actually thinking that the thing that makes the most sense for us is trying to find art for elderly care communities. And I think that you can speak a lot to this because art therapy is something that's very, very, very beneficial for people who are in, you know, downtrodden times, and especially with people who have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and a lot of other cognitive issues and things that I'm personally concerned about. I think that art therapy is a really, really good thing, and America doesn't do the absolute greatest at taking care of our elderly. Um,
Yeah,
so
um, the interesting thing, because I've got a little bit of experience with art therapy there, and there's really two ways to look at it, or two ways that it's done. Art therapy is actually a counseling methodology where the person where the participants are guided by a licensed practicing counselor, and they use the art project as a vehicle for um, talk therapy. Um, but then there's another one where it's art as therapy, where just the act of producing art is therapeutic.
mhm.
And the difference is art therapy is, I mean, you can bill it to your insurance company, but the only person that can do art therapy is a licensed practicing counselor who is also trained in art therapy in the same way that some like licensed practicing counselors are trained in cognitive behavior therapy or in what's the
Like EMDR.
yeah, EMDR. There's different particular therapies. Art therapy is one of those kinds of therapies. And what most people think of when they say art therapy, they're thinking of art as therapy, where just the process of painting helps someone who, for example, has ADHD, and by doing something that you can focus on, you can start to learn how to focus on other things as well.
See, and this is the wonderful thing about fundraising experts is clearly I'm not an expert in this. So I can just give money to people who know way more about it than I do.
Yeah, and it's so I'm going to try not to throw a wet blanket. But
Don't
you
throw a wet blanket on. How dare you
no there's
smolder the fire of passion?
I it's just because it's something that's happening in town, and it like so um uh there's Andrea Gibson
Okay.
is well, now was uh an artist here in Boulder, who just passed away this Monday, and she passed away at 49. So very, very young, passed away of ovarian cancer. Um, but I found out about her because she's a poet. In fact, I shouldn't be using the pronoun she, because she's not just a poet. She's an activist, and she was uh, 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 a queer theory activist. They were a queer theory. I have a hard time using the theys. I don't know why. I just forget about it. So there's a
Yeah, that was. I had a hard time with it in the beginning too, because for me it was pluralative. Like it was just I'm so used to the singular and then the plural. Like that was always a struggle for me. And then I was like, oh yeah, they'll get it. And I realized like, oh yeah, I'm fine with that. Okay, that was the time that I it clicked for me is when I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, oh, they'll get it.
the so when I started listening to their poetry, uh, they were they were a slam poet,
Okay.
and so it was, and that's when I was trying to learn spoken word. And so I found out about Andrea, and I would listen to their spoken word. Was very, I mean, was really, really good. I mean, really, really excellent. But they also were a very prolific author. So they had, like 10 books that they published. Um, and so anyway, it's one of those things that I think when I think about art, I think of beauty, and beauty is so um, transcendent. It transcends, people. It transcends politics. It transcends worldviews. It transcends time. So I've been thinking the past couple days uh, about Andrea and how their legacy at 49 is going to last so long.
Hmm.
And
And especially within their own community,
yeah,
like that's the thing. So I was talking with a buddy about he might be able to get a job in a really, really unique position, managing like the human resources for HBCU in North Carolina. And we were talking about how, one, amazing that opportunity would be for him, but two, how hysterical the white guy from Idaho being the HR manager of an HBCU in the South would be because of such a culture shock. Uh, and I was telling him that I feel a little bit like I would have a little bit of a leg up just because I grew up in the military. And there was a good portion of my time where, you're growing up in an area where everyone that was stationed there didn't look like you. And you started to understand a little bit more culture because you were exposed to a little bit more. So when we moved here to Idaho and everyone looked like me, it's like, okay,
that was
maybe some people don't understand it quite as much. Um, but we were talking about the struggles that a white HR manager would have going into an HBCU, not fundamentally understanding the culture. And realistically, having young people say, why do I need to explain myself? This is my culture. And it's this whole how do you balance that line of explaining to somebody, I need you to explain it to me. I need to understand because we grew up outside of this culture and we don't know it. You have your own heroes that we've never heard of because it wasn't celebrated in our culture. And to this poet's credit. The poet will be much more largely remembered in their own community because of the impact of what they have done for their community. And I think that that lasting appeal is a wildly, wildly beneficial thing. And people need to recognize that regardless of whether or not they agree with it, you can recognize like that's an impactful thing and it's a really important thing.
yeah, that's what I've really been thinking about is they were so impactful on me when I was trying to grow as a poet. And uh, so they actually had multiple communities. There's they would perform at spoken word events or open mics or whatever, and and there's a large percentage of that population that is somewhere on in within the LGBTQ community, but not everybody. I mean, clearly I was there, saying my poems too. And but they were just such an inspiring poet that I was following them because of their poetry.
Yeah,
And
that I think that's the thing is if people focus more on like the human experience is a very and this is a really interesting segue actually, because I think the human experience is much more shared than a lot of people really recognize. I was having this conversation with a kid the other day. He's a college kid, and we were talking about there's a TikTok account called the Angry Chinese Guy, and he does a really interesting job in contrasting life in China versus life in the United States because he's a Chinese national who lives in Canada. Like he's got a really unique perspective. And he was talking about the flooding that was happening in Texas last week, which is horrible flooding, god awful flooding, horrible thing that happened. But he was also talking about flooding that happened in China, which I had been paying attention to because Reddit had pulled it up a couple weeks prior, and there was some historic flooding, like absolutely historic. And he was explaining how the government over there, they don't care about bureaucracy. They don't care about your civil rights. They don't care about your civil liberties. They go in, they get it taken care of, and they got people out. And there were no casualties in this entire devastated city. In contrast to the um lack of ability to react. Like there was just no way to know. And it's so this college kid and I are talking about how content people are in China versus how content people are in America. And he's like, well, we have way more opportunities. We have way more freedoms. It's like, yeah, but you also have a lot of expectation that you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like if the world is limitless to you, then why aren't you doing it? You've got this full capacity. Hey, you're doing nothing with this full capacity. You've got all this freedom and you're not doing anything with your freedom. Why aren't you freedoming enough? Whereas over there, maybe they've got tampered expectations on what their life is going to be. But here's the thing that we have in common. As humans, we have capacity for joy. I can be overjoyed. You can be overjoyed. Someone in Russia can be overjoyed. Someone in Gaza can be overjoyed. But with the catalyst of what causes that joy might be way more simple because the expectations of what creates joy are so significantly different. If you aren't expecting to wake up tomorrow, waking up to no clouds in the sky and just peaceful air might bring you some joy. And your capacity of joy is, I think, a human experience, regardless of the outside situations. And this is where one of the things that I believe that the human experience is actually a lot more tied to one another if you stop looking at it as the fact of like, oh, you believe this and I believe this. It's like, no, you both believe something. Like you both have that greater than yourself kind of thought process. So that's the thing that actually connects you, not necessarily the semantics of the specifics.
yeah, there's and yeah, it's just amazing to me how it's like I was in Honduras in 1984. And there's we were deployed. It was part of the whole uh, uh, Iran arms Contra scandal thing. Uh, but anyway, we were down in Honduras.
Secret squirrel stuff.
There's a so I'm walking around in the desert. I mean, not just like walking around. I'm with my unit, and we're all we're patrolling. But the people there are just so dirt poor, just dirt poor. Thatch hut roofs and walking around with no shoes and but they were so happy. And like when we went to leave, we were at this tiny little airstrip in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of on the coast. It was a beautiful place. Um, but it's in the middle of nowhere, and these kids showed up with coolers filled with popsicles that they had made somehow. How they made popsicles in the middle of the jungle, I have no idea. But they made these
You
popsicles, and they were
trusted those popsicles.
yeah. It was they were disgusting. I mean, you could just look, and there were the bugs were frozen right into them. But that that there's it's so funny with soldiers. Kids still show up and they just brighten everybody's day and they sold all their popsicles, and the guys are sitting there eating their bug infested popsicles or whatever. Um, and I saw the same thing when I was in Thailand, because not every place in Thailand is poor. I mean, there's a lot of really,
Oh,
really,
there's definitely some wealth in Thailand.
yeah, there's definitely some wealth, but there you can get into some villages where it's again, it's a village, and they've got water buffalo, and they grow rice, and it's a very, very um, you know simple existence. And they play that volleyball with your foot game. I can't
Yeah.
remember. There's and I would watch them play, and they're so good at I can't remember what it's called, but it's literally volleyball with your foot. So it's like a combination of soccer and volleyball. And there's but they would just be hooting and hollering and having a great time with this wicker ball and a hand woven net strung up between two sticks. And and it really makes you so appreciative of joy and beauty and those things like that transcend cultures, transcend politics, transcend time.
So this is a good segue for trying to make a more beautiful experience.
Yeah, yeah.
So Dad last year, and by last year I mean last season, because people don't do seasons every year like it's Home Improvement. So the last season afterwards, we were talking about what were some of the things that we were doing right, doing wrong. What are some of the things that we could improve on? How do we kind of want to take this into the next level of the episode? And Dad pointed out the fact that we're really, really, really ADHD, both of us.
And it's
So
so funny because ADHD is funny to everybody except for the person that has ADHD. And for
oh,
the
it's
person that
hilarious.
it's like it affects every part of your life, and it's so difficult. Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So in an effort to curb 3.5 to 4 hour conversations that maybe sometimes go nowhere, we're gonna try and keep things a little bit more organized. So we have a new format for this new season. So we're trying to level everything up. We've got the new intro, we've got the theme song, we've got an outro, and now we've got organized. So we've got kind of three main things that we'll be doing. So the format for this season isn't going to look like us talking about literally everything that's going on in the world. That's really overwhelming. And I needed this summer break. And I read all of Dungeon Crawler Carl, all 7 books in less than 4 weeks because I was so burnt out on the world. So we're going to take, by the way, read or listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl. It is amazing. It is so good. It is the most ridiculous thing in the world. And I won't go into it because that is a whole like 30-minute rant that involves velociraptors. But anyways, I was getting really burnt out because I'm just overwhelmed with the news, and we still want to be able to have really good conversations. We want to be able to have challenging conversations, but we want to be able to have a little bit more of focused conversations as well. So the first part of the shows now are going to be more of the personal touch. That's going to be the what's on your plate section. And that's me and Dad just going back and forth, and we'll be talking about what's going on in our lives, the things that went over summer break for us, obviously today, but now you'll just kind of get to be able to follow along with what's going on with Dad with school, me going on with the barbershop, the art gallery, any kind of pop culture things that are happening in the world. And then the main course is going to be what are you bringing to the table? So, what are you bringing to the table is going to be the features where we just come up with something that we want to talk about. Now, this can be about anything going on in the world. This could be about religion. This could be about politics. This could be about technology. Who knows? It could be about whatever we want to talk about, but it's going to be the thing that brings up a good discussion. So, the real point of this is to make it so that way we have two things that we're going to have conversations about, and there's also a lot more information that we can provide to you guys as the audience, who we very much appreciate, and we want to make it so that way this is fun for you guys and it's not me just having to listen to Elon Musk clips on repeat and listening to that man speak any more than I have to. And then when we're done talking about Elon Musk, we'll just end the episodes with something really nice and fun.
We share a disdain for Elon Musk.
Oh, no. It's great because now we'll have a third option. No, we're not going to get into that. So, Dad, I will ask you for the first time, what are you bringing to the table?
What I'm bringing to the table today is manufacturing, the critical foundation of American power and its continued erosion by the growth of consumerism. We're living through the slow motion collapse of the very foundation that made America the world's dominant power, our manufacturing base. This is not just political rhetoric. It's an economic reality based on hard data that reveals how we've traded our industrial strength for consumer comfort and why that trade may cost us our global leadership. When I was born in 1964, America had just completed the most remarkable economic transformation in human history. From our beginnings as an agrarian nation to the Second Industrial Revolution to the 20th century when we became the world's manufacturing colossus. By 1950, manufacturing employed 31% of our workforce, and industrial production constituted 27% of our entire economy. This wasn't just about making things, it was about national power. Our factories didn't just produce goods, they produced prosperity, technological innovation, and the economic muscle that funded our military supremacy. The numbers tell the story. America's share of global GDP soared from 18% in 1900 to nearly 30% by 2000. We built the arsenal of democracy that won World War II, and our manufacturing prowess underwrote the system that made the dollar the world's reserve currency. Manufacturing was the engine that created the American middle class and funded our rise to global supremacy. But during my lifetime, we've witnessed a fundamental and dangerous transformation. Manufacturing employment has plummeted from 31% of our workforce in the 1950s to a historic low of just 8.3% today. We've shifted from a producer economy to a consumer economy, hollowing out the very industrial base that made us powerful. The decline accelerated dramatically after 2000. We permanently lost 5 million manufacturing jobs between 2000 and 2015. Meanwhile, China, following the exact playbook that made America great, has become the new world's factory. Today, China produces 31% of global manufacturing output, and the United Nations projects they'll control 45% by 2030. They've essentially reversed our historical positions. In 1900, we had 18% of global GDP, while China had 11%. Today, China has 22.3%, while we've fallen to 21.4%. This isn't just about economics. It's about strategic vulnerability. When you can't make things, you can't defend yourself. When your supply chain depends on potential adversaries, you've surrendered your independence. China now dominates critical industries, semiconductors, rare earth minerals, pharmaceuticals, and advanced manufacturing technologies. They've achieved this through state-directed investment while we financialized our economy. Compounding this industrial decline is our mounting fiscal crisis. Our national debt has exploded from 23% of GDP in 1974 to over 130% today. Unlike the debt we incurred fighting World War II, which we paid down through industrial growth and fiscal discipline, today's debt finances consumption, not investment. We're borrowing to maintain living standards while our productive capacity erodes. This debt trajectory is unsustainable and threatens the dollar's reserve currency status. When creditor nations lose confidence in your ability to pay, they seek alternatives. China is systematically building those alternatives through its digital yuan, the Belt and Road Initiative, and multilateral trade agreements through alliances like BRICS that bypass the dollar. Intelligence estimates indicate China will likely attempt to seize Taiwan between 2026 and 2028. This isn't just about territorial ambition, it's about economic dominance. Taiwan produces 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors, the technological foundation of the modern economy. A successful Chinese invasion would give Beijing control over global technology supply chains. More critically, a failed American defense of Taiwan would shatter confidence in American power and trigger a fundamental shift in the global monetary system. If we cannot protect a democratic ally 90 miles from the Chinese mainland, why would other nations trust our security guarantees? Why would they continue using a currency backed by a declining global power? China has been preparing for this moment, building massive foreign exchange reserves, stockpiling commodities, and creating alternative financial institutions. The yuan's share of global transactions has grown by 300%, and a successful Taiwan campaign would accelerate its adoption as the country's hedge against American decline. The solution for this decline is clear, but requires the political will that built America in the first place. Massive reinvestment in domestic manufacturing, particularly in high technology sectors. We must rebuild our industrial base through tax incentives, infrastructure investment, and strategic trade policies that protect critical industries. We cannot consume our way to prosperity. We must produce our way back to greatness. The kind of political will that would reverse America's decline in national power requires transcending the partisan forces that keep our people politically divided. We cannot reverse this trend in 2, 4, 6, or even 8 years. Rebuilding our core industrial capabilities of mining critical earth, manufacturing basic products like electricity, steel, and aluminum will take decades and require huge labor investments. Manufacturing useful products that will be profitable in the coming century will require reconnection of our research, design, engineering, and manufacturing capacities through large-scale investments in our people and industries that would exceed those that followed World War II. The choice we face is stark. We can either restore American manufacturing or accept Chinese dominance in the world. The solution needs to be American solutions, not Democratic or Republican solutions. The window for action is closing, and the consequences of inaction are irreversible decline. If we fail to take care of our critical national interests in the coming decade, we will certainly lose our place as the world's leading power. So that's my plate.
That's your TED Talk. I actually love that that's what you were talking about, because with the podcast that I listened to in the morning, my finance podcast was talking about something that happened last week with the Department of Defense, because the Pentagon had announced a $400 million investment into an American company called MP Materials.
Yep.
And MP Materials is a rare earth minerals mining operation that's just outside of, or it's in California, and it's the only company in America that mines rare earth minerals, because 91% of the world's production of rare earth minerals is in China. And you need this for weapons technology, you need this for fighter jet technology, you need this for magnets, you need this for superconductors, you need this for everything. And what was interesting, they brought it up on the podcast to bring up the idea of, okay, is this investing in America, or is this a form of socialism? And they kind of bring up this idea because basically what's going to happen is the $400 million investment is to kickstart the cost of getting a second mine operating. And then the Pentagon is going to have, like, I think it's a 10-year production before anything is going to come out of this mine. But then the Pentagon gets first dibs at everything that comes out of the mine at $50 a pound. So it's guaranteed prices for this company that'll be able to make significant money. It's going to really make more supply available to the American supply chain as it's needed, especially as all these advancements and technologies become available. And, I've been having this conversation over the last couple of weeks in the shop of the people that are getting into manufacturing right now have a really hard time because it is a huge hill to climb. But if you climb that hill, you're on the hill. You're at the top of the hill. And that's where everybody wants to be. So I kind of understand some of the things that they're talking about with, this needs to be the beginning of the golden age, and this is something that'll last. It's going to be something that's going to take a long time to happen because it's not like we can just have these mines turn on tomorrow. But I am interested in how that works with the Pentagon owning stock in a company
Yeah, it's a
because
15% ownership stake.
yeah.
So
So
and it's
if
done during
this
a Republican administration. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a very social thing. But the idea is, if there's only one company that's doing this in America, and we're promoting American manufacturing, that company's gonna do gangbusters. So the Pentagon will make a shit ton of money off of that. And so I've been having. There's another thing that came out of the bill that passed that I thought was really interesting, and like. I think that one of the things that I really appreciate the most out of the way that you raised us was a value for national parks and public spaces. And I am so glad that everyone in the West Coast recognized that Senator Mike Lee from Utah is a dipshit. Really, really glad. That's neither here nor there. I just wanted to get that out. But Trump did mention something separate from the proposal of the sale of our national public lands, and it was funding national parks in a different way, which was if you are an American citizen, these are our American parks. These are our national parks. You have X cost of getting into the national park. But if you're a foreign tourist, you have an X multiplier to the X cost of getting in, and it's the foreign tourism that will actually fund the parks, which is interesting if we can get past this international egg on our face, where people aren't necessarily wanting to bring tourism to America right now. If we can get past that, that might actually be a decent idea because I doubt the wealth that's coming from Singapore is going to really be impacted too much if there's a little bit of a multiplier, and especially if it's done in a way that you don't even notice. If it's hey, if you bring your Wyoming ID and you verify that you're an American citizen, you get a discount. It's the advertised cost that everyone can prepare for, but oh, you're an American citizen? You get the American discount. That would be the way to do it.
Yeah, and there's there. I mean, there's a couple things in there. One, the thing that the Department of Defense is doing with the mining company.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of investment that I'm talking about. It's investment that it's like, okay, this makes sense because if we don't mine things, we cannot rebuild our steel industry. We cannot rebuild our aluminum industry. We can't produce the things that we need to produce because we have to have the basic materials. And right
you have to
now,
pull it out of the earth to refine it.
yeah, we're dependent upon China to bring us. And I'm not anti-China. I am not anti-China at all. But I, if you're going to compete, you've got to compete. And like Russia is playing hardball with us. China is playing pro ball, and we've been playing show ball for 40 years. We've just been a show. We say we're the greatest economy in the world while we just continue to produce nothing and buy everything. And
we got away from England and we became the Queen of England because we're just a figurehead.
It's so funny. I was listening to that song "Queen of Denmark" this morning. It's a great song. Few different people sang it, but I was listening to it this morning. It's a great song. But that's what ADHD does. You say Queen, and I think of Queen of Denmark.
Oh, see, and I think that we will rock you. Yeah.
And that's because we just went through the Live Aid 1985 anniversary, which was 2 days ago.
Stop with the ADHD. This is why we reformatted the whole fucking thing.
That's hilarious. So there's a, but
This is where you say, now, where were we talking about?
there's a, but we need, so yeah, it is weird. It's uncomfortable in a capitalist democracy to have the Department of Defense own a 15% stake in a private company. Um, there's but who else right now is going to invest that kind of money in mining? Nobody. No,
Yeah,
there.
and I don't want BlackRock or State Street to be the ones that own the mining, because I just don't see good things happening with them owning that too. Like, I'm sure that it'll eventually become the case with stock prices being what they are, but if we can make it potentially less of that.
I just read a book. Well, I listened to it on Audible, but called Apple in China, and I really recommend the book. It's a great book. Um, but so during the Biden administration, they passed this thing called the CHIPS Act, which
Yep.
was billed as a once in a lifetime or a once in a generation investment in American chip manufacturing. Was $50 billion. Um, Apple spent $58 billion every year for 4 years training a workforce the size of all the workers in California in China in order to manufacture high tech um, uh, products like iPhones. So rather than investing in Iowa, and teaching people in Iowa how to build iPhones, they they spent almost 5 times what our government has invested and that is exactly why China has the economic power that it does now. Nobody else in the world can manufacture the kind of things that China can manufacture, and it's specifically because Apple invested so much in the Chinese economy rather than investing in the American economy, and that's insane. It's how we think we can continue to allow American companies to train our competitors' workforces without any kind of penalty, without any kind of of tariff on the. That's exactly the idea behind the tariffs: is make it
Yeah.
cheaper to manufacture the products here in the United States than it is to manufacture in China.
Yeah, and I think that, the one of the things that I've started to recognize is the the wheel of this ship. It's a pretty big ship, and he's just doing this whole number, and we're just watching like all of this chaos of him turning, but the rudder is still just barely moving. So this is going to be a really, really, really wide turn that it's so, like nobody is really going to see the turn happen. It is just this giant shifting thing that we're all just experiencing at the same time. And I think that it's going to be a lot of this where you see, okay, we're putting the tariffs back on Mexico and Canada after everyone said that he would chicken out, after everyone said that he wouldn't do it. And it's it's kind of like, okay, let's take two steps forward to take one step back. Let's take two steps forward to take one step back. Let's temper the waters a little bit so that way we can get a little bit closer to what the actual fair trade is supposed to be. And I think that it's just this really interesting negotiations tactic of the world is seeing this whole back and forth motion and it's really chaotic.
And when I think of what we're going to spend on a war with China, and particularly if we fight a war with China and Russia at the same time,
And
we are
especially if it's
going
a
to,
hot war.
yeah, that's what I mean. They're so
Yeah.
like actually shooting at each other. The In the first place, I'll end up doing this as a what's on my plate. There, we're not prepared to fight that war. We are completely not. Well, we're prepared to fight it because everybody is talking all kinds of smack, but we are not prepared to win that war. I can tell you that for certainty. And that the challenge is, I would rather take the money that we were going to spend on a war and invest it in our own manufacturing, because this is the perfect time to do it. There's the world is getting ready to start buying robots, humanoid robots, at a scale no one has ever seen before.
Oh my God. So we had this conversation last week in the shop. I was talking to somebody about how long do you think before you are comfortable with buying an AI powered humanoid robot? And I remember how just against the idea I was a year and a half ago. And as soon as the conversation came to me, I was like, as soon as I have the money, like
Yeah,
literally, as soon as I have your, I'm not gonna have to do laundry. That thing will cook for me. And we had this practical conversation around what kind of expectations you could have out of it, because you can't expect it to be as good as you, especially not with the first generation of things. So what I expect it to be is an 11-year-old. You can't expect an 11-year-old to do a lot of things, but you can expect an 11-year-old to learn how to mow the lawn. You can't
I remember
expect
teaching
an
you guys how to mow
11
the lawn. That was a that was
yeah,
a that
you
was a
know,
big milestone.
yeah. So there's a handful of things that will give you time back out of your life, and the more that I'm using it, and the more I'm using, or it's not that I am not doing the work. I'm still finding fulfillment out of my projects and I'm still finding things. If anything, I'm getting more enjoyment out of it because I'm getting the most out of myself with these. How do I find more time to do that? I don't want to cook. I don't want to fold laundry. I don't want to do the menial tasks that literally just take up my time and don't add any benefit other than putting the clothes away, which is good. I like not having wrinkled clothes.
And like, if we go back to the 1950s, when we were manufacturing Colossus, there's what was amazing is the things that we were enjoying in our own lives were the things that we were building in our work lives. So, hi-fi stereo systems were brand new. It was the highest technology that existed at the time. We were building them through companies like Kenwood and RCA, and we were building them and buying them. We were the world. We made the best stereo equipment, bar none, in the world. We built washing machines and we enjoyed washing machines. We enjoyed, no longer, like you're talking about doing laundry. Just imagine what it was like when you were doing laundry in a great big tub in the basement where you were
Yeah.
hand washing everything. They built a washing machine and everybody got one. We got new refrigerators. We got electric ovens. We got,
And they were affordable because everything was manufactured here.
and very importantly, we at a wage where where one income could provide for an entire family. And we
Yep.
wonder why our birth rate is going off the cliff and nobody wants to have kids. who the hell can afford to have a
Yeah,
kid?
it's the I've had this conversation with mom many times. It's the reason that I had a vasectomy. I had to make the decision of what the American dream looked like for me, and ultimately I knew, okay, I'm either going to struggle to be the good parent that I want to be, or I'm going to enjoy my life. And is it selfish that I wanted to enjoy my life? Yeah, it is. I'm okay with that. I'm enjoying my life.
Yeah, and I mean we're doing good things with child care tax credits and the new investment account. There's
You
a
know, I actually think that's a pretty smart idea. And I've been saying it a lot. You know, as sweeping as this bill was, it's hard to pay attention to everything, and there's definitely a lot of things in it that I don't like. But when anything is as big as this is, you're not going to hate all of it. There's going to be pieces of it that are actually pretty good, and the child investment where it's like, oh, you're investing that in America and you're investing that in the stock market that does traditionally grow, and that's without us actually trying to do any kind of manufacturing here in the States. So it should grow pretty exponentially and compounded over 18 years. You might get free education for your kids.
and that's exactly right, and it's and that's the kind of thing that we need, and we need, but the thing that's difficult is we need to be able to sustain that between transitions of power from one party to another. We
Mm-hmm.
can't, every time a Democrat gets in office, they can't undo what the Republicans did. And then every time a Republican gets in office, they undo whatever the Democrats did, because you can't think beyond an election cycle. You can't plan beyond an election cycle. And we need the kind of investment that we're talking about, uh, needs to be, it's like, oh, okay. If I mean, I want there to be a wage, the market to have a wage to where one person can, I mean, this is the life that you guys grew up in. I worked and your mom stayed home and homeschooled you guys. And we were able to do that. It wasn't easy. We weren't rich. We didn't save a whole lot, but, but, but it,
As far as capacity of joy goes, you
yeah,
probably had a more full joy cup than the same family in the situation right now.
yeah, cause it's like, it's not just that it takes two people. It's two people working at least three jobs. And it's just so much stress on the parents, and so much stress on the family, and so much stress on the children, that it's so difficult to be like, oh, we really value the American family. The American family is the bedrock of our society. Wait a minute. I mean, I will agree that that's what it was like in 1950, but I don't think that it was like, it's like, oh, because back in 1950 everybody was religious and everybody went to church and everybody went to these things and we should get back to. No, we had an economy where one person could work full time, dedicate themselves to their career, and the other person that's in that family, whether it's a mother or a father, there needs to be a full time parent raising children. That's the best
Mhm.
way to get to good human beings that don't just know what the school taught them, but they know how to innovate, and they know how to it's like, there's families can be the greatest love laboratories that exist. That's what they're supposed to be. It's like these laboratories where we learn how to love one another in very difficult circumstances. And now we just try and figure out how to entertain ourselves in the little snippets of time.
Yeah, how do you pacify this until the experience is over?
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Yeah. And it's one of the weirdest things too, because like when you see kids that have nothing but electronics around them and they're just kind of like quieted and pacified, they don't know how to behave properly in public. They don't know how to engage with other kids, and it's like, okay, that's a distraction. Let them be out in the world, and then they get their energy out. They get the socialization. They are, probably a lot more apt to pay attention because all of the things that they needed to get out got out. But if you just keep having like, all right, dopamine, 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 what's gonna wind up being the thing that really allows them to have that capacity of joy felt?
Consumerism and manufacturing is what I brought to the table. What are you bringing to the table this week?
So, what I'm bringing to the table is kind of interesting because we touched on a lot of it. But one of the things I find really interesting as an adult, especially owning a barber shop in the Treasure Valley and seeing like such a large swath of population diversity, like I have everyone from college kids to old farmers that remember when there was nothing but fields out here. Is I find that I meet more and more people who were never introduced to church at a young age. Um, and obviously, you know how I was raised. You were there. I grew up in a world that was so institutionally involved in church that the majority of the people in my life knew of the Christian lifestyle. They lived it. They would speak about it. It was regular. And it was the secular lifestyle that was the contrasting lifestyle. So this was normal. We were a Christian nation growing up, and especially in North Georgia in the 90s. So Pew Research supports this because in the 90s, it was around 90% of America that identified them as Christian, and it was just a meager 5% of the population that said they had no religious affiliation. So now there has been an article that's been making the rounds for the last couple of months, and it's about the most recent Pew Research that came out earlier this year, the 2023 to 2024 Religious Landscape Study. And in this study, it shows how 62% of Americans now affiliate themselves with Christianity. So we went down from 90% when I was growing up to 62%. Meanwhile, the unaffiliated population has grown from 5% to 29%. And that 29% breaks down to like 5% atheists, 6% agnostics, and then the rest of the people just simply answered the question with regards to religion, nothing in particular. So, I love the way that you presented what's on your plate because we have very similar writing styles. Because in my lifetime, our nation went from having 9 out of 10 people in the room agreeing on the same issue to now having almost a third of the room thinking the other two-thirds are crazy. So I'm less interested in arguing about why we think younger generations have lost their spirituality. I don't necessarily, I think that there's a lot of speculation that we can go in. But instead, I kind of want to focus on the innate human need for belief in something larger than ourselves. And I kind of want to focus the initial parts of this towards the mid 90s because I think that you were able to give us a really unique experience, but you're also on the tail end of baby boomers. So in the mid 90s, the internet became widely available with America Online. And it was typically Gen X was the first generation to really access that technology because they were young enough to embrace it in the workforce. You're right at that cusp. You're like little baby boomer. Uh, so here's kind of the interesting thing about it, though. So at this point in the 90s, Gen X at this age was only at a 7% decline in their affiliation to Christianity in comparison to baby boomers when baby boomers were the exact same age. So I do think that the 90s are a really interesting catalyst point because if you were raised with traditions, you're probably going to continue on with those traditions. But the way that you raised me and a lot of Gen Xers raised their kids was, hey, be curious. When you were a kid, we had this thing called the internet. So we literally put everything on the internet. It's this giant playground we made for our kids, and we gave the internet to our kids. But the thing is, like back then, it was a playground that was existing in the early 90s, so it had metal slides that would give you third degree burns on sunny days, especially if you're like wearing shorts that were the wrong size. So, what's interesting about this though is you've got communication and exploration of outside cultures for the first time in a commercially available part of history. And this is the first time where the world becomes less big and we start moving towards globalism. So I look at this as where mysteries start becoming defined as everything is cataloged and literally everything becomes available within moments. So you got these generation of curious people teaching their kids to be curious. And this brings us to the most recent Pew study again, which reports that young Americans specifically, like the age bracket between 18 and 29, the one that were raised by these people that were only 7% lower than their parents, 45% of young people say they're Christian. That's it. Meanwhile, 44% say they're completely unaffiliated. So it is split straight down the middle now. Which is really interesting because so many people think that, the Christians are doing this, the Christians are doing that. It's like, actually, I think that to me, it's kind of a death rattle, not a death rattle like they're going away. Jesus was way too impactful. The Christianity's not going anywhere. But I do see where the Christian community has recognized the secular world that we've been talking about all this time is starting to take space. So I recognize that. Again, don't want to talk about the causality, correlation, or anything like that. But being where everything is at, I do think that the youth are really kind of the important thing to look at here, because at the end of the day, something shiny on a screen is way, way, way more distracting and way more alluring than a dusty old book. And as technology is always getting bigger, better, stronger, faster, that candy just looks way more tempting, and kids are getting younger and younger and understanding that. So I think that the concepts of religion are getting skewed a lot, and people are not necessarily trusting whether it be news, media, religion. There's just a lot more skepticism because of this curiosity. And because of that, there is a growing trend that I've been able to notice for me, myself, and the world that I exist in. So there's a highlight in the decline of religious affiliation. There's a rising trend among social media influencers and marketers who use terms like spiritual awakening and other language stemming from religion and mysticism. And what I think this is a response to recognizing that while people might be moving away from Christianity specifically, there still is a universal human need to believe in something larger than yourself. So, me personally, I definitely have like a really weird abstract belief structure. I fall very easily in that 29% of unaffiliated people. So when I was debating on whether or not I wanted to leave the Christian church, I started looking into other things. I started getting curious of, okay, if I left, what would I go to? So I started looking at all the books that people didn't want me to read in the church. I read the Book of Mormon. I read Dianetics. I read the Satanic Bible. And eventually I found that I wasn't compatible with the space that I was occupying. And that was what caused my divorce. So shortly after leaving the church and my divorce, I had an opportunity to go to Dubai, and I was able to experience kind of a westernized Muslim nation. So all this was really, really eye-opening. And now in hindsight, I can take a look at a few things and realize that I was constantly calling myself atheist at this point because I had left the church. But really, I was just going through depression. I was really angry at a lot of things at a lot of times. And I mean, I'm going through divorce. I've lost my identity of self. I've lost my marriage, my religion, my stability. I was living with my dad, and then my dad went crazy, so I lost the place that I was living. So it's easy now to recognize that my anger and atheism was just kind of part of my depression. And now I look at things a little bit differently because I think, okay, that's one option, and this is one option, and this is one option, and there's a lot of options. So in the only way that I've come to find that was in an effort of fighting my depression. I went through a really, really heroic psychedelic experience. And that psychedelic experience is what helped me rediscover the mystery. And I think that that's the thing that the internet did a good job of getting rid of, was the mystery of everything. And once the mystery kind of goes away, you really don't have any reason to believe anything. So that mystery and rediscovering it allowed me to start kind of listening to the things that called out to me individually, and helping me find inspiration. And the thing that I found was tarot. And we've had conversations about it. Like, I've got 40 decks over there. And for me, tarot has always been inward reflection. So the prompts are just card meanings. So I don't argue if the cards align with me due to my intent in the universe, or if it's just completely random. I get a card and I think about how that impacts me. And that is kind of the same thing that I was doing with prayer. And I do it about as inconsistently as I used to pray. So here's this is all getting into the core question that I'm going to get to. So what's interesting through all of this is, when I was looking at the main religions, like the big three religions, any kind of subsets of them, they always have real baseline information. You know, Christianity has the Bible, Islam has the Quran, LDS has the Book of Mormon, but witchcraft and like similarly categorized religions and paganism and Satanism and it lacks a certain structure to them. And what's interesting is, I do think that there are counterculture people that need things that are unstructured. Like, I think that that's the reason that it works so well for me, is because there's less of the you need to follow these specific rules. Now, one of the very, very common things in this is fellowship isn't really large congregation heavy in these communities. A lot of covens are literally just self-practicing covens of one. Communities are largely online, but it's not like it's fringe. There's this recent phenomenon on TikTok. The Oracle card hashtag has over 16.1 million uses on TikTok. People can get rituals on a regular basis, and I have experience from this because I used to run an account on my Instagram called My Morning Tarot. And for me, what this account was a daily creative exercise. I would take an ASMR video of shuffling the deck and pulling a card, and I would have to edit a video. And then I would get my camera out, I'd take a picture of the pulled card, and I would have to edit a photo. And then I would have a paragraph that I would have to write about what this was doing in comparison to my life. So it was this really great creative exercise, and I got to share the creative parts of it while it wound up being this inner reflection and meditative thing for myself. So it was just kind of this space that I occupied. And when you occupy a space, you see the people that occupy it, and you see there's really great people, and there's also people who are full of shit. Just like any religion. There's a recent Marie Claire article that was highlighting how much of this content is just aesthetically designed for algorithms and optimizing sales models. But, experts are noting that real use cases address grief and stress and self-care, but they're really just kind of packaging spiritual capitalism. And again, it's not just witchcraft, because it's not unique with any one religion. There's apparently a guy recently autographed Bibles and sold them for $1,000 each. I don't know who might have done that, but again, we don't need to focus on that at all. Uh, so through all of this exploration, here's kind of the thing that the question is. I found similarities in all sorts of unexpected places. And we once talked about the similarity between tarot practice and the saint cards. And I think it's really interesting earlier that we were talking about how humans have this shared experience. So, with as much as you are an academic and as much as you've been studying Catholicism, is there room in your belief structure contained within the rules of Catholicism for the idea and concept that the mystery of God, so like God being the blanket that you cover the mystery with, is there room that the mystery is great enough to exist in ways beyond comprehension to the extent that they could appear adversarial to initial understanding, but could in fact be two different individuals speaking to the same mystery? Or does what you believe in define it so structured that I am talking to a different mystery?
There's I guess the way that I would answer that is that there's there have been several uh popes, the previous pope, John Paul, who have uh who have said something to the effect of um that all religious paths lead to God. And what they're really trying to say there um, is that God is kind of, oh my, are you there? I just lost your picture. I think we might have our first. Not sure how this is going to work out, but we're trying to get to where we link back up. We had a little bit of a technical problem. Um, there's this has happened to me a couple times when I was using too many monitors. So it may be because we're trying some new technology things. Uh, we're
Are you
back.
still there?
I am still here.
Oh my gosh. It was literally, you were like, the thing is, and then it just completely disconnected. The suspense is killing me.
Yeah, and this is what happened. I was just explaining it in case there was dead air time. This is what happened when I had too many monitors, and we may run into the circumstance to where our audio is a little bit askew. Remember when that was happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would get kicked off, and then and maybe Riverside has got it figured out. I don't know, but we might run into a circumstance like that.
Well, for the sake of continuity, what was it that you were finishing up saying?
There's so there's our belief is that I mean God went through everything that of Christ's suffering in order to reconcile the world unto himself. So, the notion that God is some like distant thing distant entity that is trying to stay away from us, and that we've got to work really, really hard to try and find our way to him, I think is not a recognition of the initiator of grace that God inherently is. So certainly, I believe that that Christianity is true, and I believe that the Catholic Church and her teachings are true. Um, but I don't think that Catholicism has the corner on truth, and I think that that uh, that that God initiates grace long before people know who God is. So does that mean that other people are following other paths and finding their way to God? Yeah, I think that absolutely means that. There's it there's for me, I'm in my faith, and I'm practicing my faith the best that I can. Um and I don't think that I need to try and add new things to my faith in order to make it complete. But I generally think that it's that seeking the divine is a good practice. And however someone chooses to seek the divine, uh, there's God is seeking them as well.
See, and that's
Um,
the concept that I've given with somebody is, I think that Christianity talks about God as a selfish God, right? And he vies for your attention. And I would argue, yeah, but God's a clever God too, probably. Like if we can't figure him out, then he's clever. So I would imagine that God could introduce himself as Jesus to you, and you're like, oh, look at my buddy Jesus. Meanwhile, God has a double life with me and is like, hey, I'm Morgana. And I'm like, hey, Morgana, how are you doing? And we don't know about the triple and quadruple life that God's living because there's billions of people here. But I ultimately think that whatever it is that's out there is, if it really is wanting to have an individual relationship with all of us, it's smart enough to know how to meet us halfway. And that's kind of the argument that I would make, because I think that a lot of people do have a connection with needing community, but I also think that there's a subset of humans that don't. Like, I don't want some of that community. I don't want to be around a bunch of people. That's just me in some of my neurodivergency, and I recognize that. And I'm just innately uncomfortable in some of these places that have a lot of structure. So to me, the divine is spoken in these chaotic spaces that seem really adversarial, and yet I would argue that my morality is a similar morality.
yeah, and I mean, and again, I think that that's a unique expression within a certain segment of Christianity that obviously we were in while you were younger. The whole idea of God being a selfish God, that God demands our worship, that God demands these things of us because he wants those things for himself. And that's not how I would describe God today. That is, um, there's God is love, and love is willing the good of the other. And I think that there's so much evidence that God is is the initiator of grace. God is the one who is reaching out to us. The entire Paschal mystery, the whole death, burial, resurrection, ascension of Jesus Christ, is the story of God working to bring man back into relationship with him. So I don't think that's selfish. I don't think that's selfish at all. I think God is a very giving and generous and loving, loving character. And
Okay.
that's but yeah, there's one of the things that Pope Leo is doing, the current Pope, is he's reaching out to, more than any Pope that I've ever seen, he's reaching out to the Orthodox churches and trying to reconcile what's called the Great Schism, this great, separation in Catholicism that has, been in place for 600 years. And, longer than that, 1,000 years. Um, so there's, and I honestly believe that reconciliation might take place before the schism actually reaches up an entire millennium. So yeah, I would never tell someone who is seeking God through tarot to stop. Don't do that, because you're reaching out to the wrong God, because God is God, and God is everywhere, and God is in everything. So that may very well be the path that someone finds God. And it's not like, I believe that because I have found Christ, I am somehow now perfected, right? And that my pathway is like a straight pathway that's going to take me straight into heaven. That's, again, Catholics have this whole concept of purgatory. Um, we had a conversation, and you thought that,
Hmm.
that this world would seem like a really great purgatory. Perhaps it
Yeah,
is.
and I still like that's how I kind of conceptualize purgatory. I think this world is you're learning your lessons and then you'll live your life until you learn the lessons you need and then you eventually get it.
Yeah. And there's just all these, these what if questions of, it's like, well, what about the tribe that's never had any contact with the civilized world, never heard about Jesus, never heard about this, or all the unborn children who die because of abortion, or all the young people who die, through war, or through famine, or through suffering, and all these things. And it's like, oh well, they didn't go through Christian initiation. They weren't confirmed into the church. They were never baptized. They were never, all these things that exist that are part of my religion, part of Catholicism, that they never get to. And the you know the the door that I find in that wall, right? So there's a wall, right? So how are these people going to get into heaven? The door that I find in that wall is the door of Christ. And my belief that God wants those people to be in relationship with him more than I do. So if I'm like sitting here going, this is unfair, this is wrong, I really want these people to know about God, and I really want these people to know, if that's the way that I feel, God loves people more than I do. My love is just like so imperfect compared to the perfect love that God has. So
It's interesting because what you're describing is the term agape love, and it's like it's that unconditional love. It's weird how like the American language it has one word for like 8 or 9 different uses of the word of love, but there's like definitive ways to say it too. Um, I ADHD brain was going somewhere with that. What were you saying?
well, that's why I love Saint Thomas's uh, description of love, in that love is willing the good of the other as other. And if we
Yeah,
there's so if we look at God as love, right? So there, in order for there to be love, there has to be a relationship. So there has to be a lover, a beloved, and the love with which they share. So there's this 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 relational aspect of 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 God. Well, of love. Well, if so you to use the the classic verse, for God so loved the world, so that means God loves everybody. God, there is no one in the world that God doesn't love. And and willing the good of the other is an act of will, is something that causes an action. So if you will the good of the other, it's going to cause you to do things that are for the other's good. So that, again, that classic verse, God so loved the world, everybody, that he gave himself, right? So this is like this, when I think of that kind of a love, that, to me, that is just like, I have a hard time giving $5 to the homeless person down the street. There's because I definitely have a hard time doing it without some kind of like condemning thought going through my mind. It's like, this guy probably deserves it. You know what I'm saying? I've got so no matter how good I am, no matter how perfect I can try and make myself to be, I am never gonna match the love that God is. So I have to rest in that confidence that God loves everybody, the world, more than I do. And this is where this concept of purgatory is. I mean, in order for, first off, the whole idea of hell, what is hell? And for me, hell is separation from God. So the only way that you can be separated from God is to continue to reject him, because he's trying to reconcile. He's trying to bring us towards him always. And the only way that we can be separate from him is through, in spite of all those efforts, we say, no, I don't want anything to do with you. You just go away. I'm fine. I don't need you. That's the only way that so the pathway that leads to hell is continually rejecting God. So where does that take you? It takes you to a place that God is not.
It gives you what you want.
Yeah. So that's where I get. So my view of hell is, and the only, I don't know what it looks like other than that. It's like a place where you are isolated from God. And my view of heaven is a place where you are with God. You are connected with God. And we talk about that in terms of going to heaven. But that's because that's the language that we have from the Bible. We have the language that says, God is in the heavens above and hell is in the depths below. But those are figures. Those are figures of speech. When God ascended, when Christ ascended, he's not like following the Voyager satellite, somewhere in space, hoping that, there's a heaven somewhere in the Andromeda galaxy or something like that. The idea of rising up is transcending the material world that we exist in to a higher place. And that is so. And then I could go on. So as far as mystics go, that's what I'm studying. So like the early mystics, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, there's so like these guys were in the 3rd century. They were going out into the desert and they were just like thinking about God and thinking about. So these mystics were, and that's one of the reasons why the church had to have so many councils, is because guys would come back from the desert and they're like, this is what I think. And then the church would have to argue about it. Is that really true? Is it not true? And they would eventually have, the Council of Nicaea. And then they would have the Council of Constantinople. And they would have all these councils where people who were just thinking about God and trying to understand what it is, they would come back. The church would accept some and reject others. And that's what those councils are. And it's so fun for me anyway. That maybe that's why I like this history class. To go back to these guys who didn't have a Bible because the New Testament hadn't been written yet,
Yeah.
and but what they had were these oral traditions that were being passed from the apostles to the early church fathers to the church fathers, and that was a time of tremendous exploration of faith, and to a certain extent, the church's perspective is those heresies were settled at the councils. So, like the Gnostic heresy, where some people believed that Jesus wasn't real, that Jesus was an apparition, and he was just a spirit who appeared to people
Yeah, he
as a
wasn't
real.
of flesh and blood. He was just the appearance of.
Yeah. So, but that idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It popped up because there was a person who believed that and started teaching it to other people, and that person was a bishop. So that bishop would go to go to a council with all these other bishops, and the other bishops were like, "Dude, you were eating mushrooms. You need to settle down on the mushrooms."
Which
And
is further proof of sacred cross and the mushroom.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but the mystical aspect of faith is very much a part of Catholicism. It's yeah, it's there's we embrace the early church fathers um and and the mysteries of faith that people try and explore in a myriad of ways. Some, within the confines of the church, and other people who are outside the church are seeking to find God through mysterious ways that none of us understand.
I think it's interesting the idea of how different branches of a belief structure can skew the perception of what it is that the belief is. And it also kind of shows how different the different subsects are, because like that's the whole thing about Southern Baptist. That was very, very deeply ingrained. It's like God's a selfish God, and God is a God of war, and it's like the Old Testament wrath and brimstone. And it does paint a picture that even throughout hearing a lot of other descriptions of God, it's like, the whole reason that I don't like all of this is because nobody lives up to these expectations for what it is. Because it's just like, okay, everybody's all about this wrathful, horrible thing. That's Old Testament, and that has no application whatsoever. Like the whole thing about Jesus coming is so that way you understand what the new covenant was, and that you understand that there's supposed to be this space of loving your neighbor and not having judgment towards other, and not casting stones, and not being the people that you were previously, and how much of a seismic shift in culture that is. And yet people still cling on to the things that are just the lizard brain, rah rah rah, I'm better than you, I'm gonna conquer you. So it's interesting knowing that you were responsible, partly for me having that perspective, and also seeing how far your perspective has changed since giving me that. So that is really interesting. That's kind of a nice thing to see.
There's, I was thinking about this last night, as a matter of fact, because I was talking with a neighbor, and the neighbor has some people that are moving in with them for a couple weeks, um, uh, who moved up from Texas, but they're from Brazil. So what I got out of the conversation was, uh, these people are here without legal documentation. Texas is a bad place to be right now. So they came up to
Especially if you
Boulder.
have no documentation.
Yeah, so they came up to Boulder, which is uh, at least perceived as a better place to be, where
Are
you're
you guys
less.
described as a sanctuary city?
Oh yes,
Okay.
absolutely, very much
I,
so.
I figured as much. Boise is too, and that's one of the things that I've been talking a lot about ever since Los Angeles is, that's the thing that we're seeing. But I guarantee that sanctuary cities are going to be the first places that get targeted. The cities that are actually advertising it, and it is not going to be fun when it happens.
Yeah, so and it's but there. So in my mind, it's easy for me to be like, oh well, I mean, we have a right and a responsibility to to write laws and to enforce our laws. And
I'm not disagreeing with the process. Well, I'm disagreeing with the process because there needs to be due process. I am not disagreeing with the fact that it probably needs to be done. I'm like 90% in agreement on that. The stuff that I'm holding up on is all right. It seems really sketchy and not giving people due process to send them to countries and then saying it's that country's responsibility to get people back, especially if it's not a country that those people are from. Those are the things that I have issues with.
there's you see, what I'm saying is, regardless of what my personal political beliefs are, my faith compels me to love my neighbor.
Yes. Yeah.
That's from my responsibility. I'm not a CBP agent. I'm not an ICE agent. I'm not any one of those people that's responsible for enforcing those laws. I am a neighbor, and my neighbor told me that he's going to have some people moving in for a couple weeks, and I need to be just love my neighbor and welcome them to the apartment complex and say, hey, how are you? Is there anything that I can do for you? There's that's my role in the world. So it's so funny how people think that they have to make declarations for circumstances when it's not even in front of them. It's like why on earth would I make some kind of a declaration about who can get married and who can't get married? Because I'm not marrying anybody. It's not what I do. There's so like I was mentioned the poet. Is it my job to be like, well, they're a queer theory champion. So how can I appreciate this person? How can I say that this person is kind and loving and wonderful? And how can I be like, wow, I wish I could love my uh, uh, I mean it metaphorically. I wish that I could love my spouse the way that they loved their spouse. And there's there's because my role is not to condemn somebody else. My role is to love my neighbor. That's it. Love my neighbor. There, and so it's like I need to love God, I need to love myself, and I need to love my neighbor. And if it was possible for me to get those three things right, then I am closer to heaven than I think most most of the
Yeah.
people that I know.
There was during the first administration when there was the whole separation of kids at the southern border and there were the like kids in cages thing that was going on. I had a really weird situation happen in the shop where there was a guy who had been coming in pretty regular, and he was one of those um, army guys who just kind of had a chip on his shoulder and like the world just owed him something. And he went off on a tirade in the middle of the shop about how it is that we shouldn't be caring about people that are getting across the border. And he's being really, really, really belligerent about it. And it gets to a point where I say, you need to stop having this conversation in my shop right now. And he starts challenging me for, oh, are you challenging my First Amendment rights? You're going to tell me what I can and can't say? And I was like, in my shop, absolutely. Because here's the thing, you're saying some stuff that's really hateful to other humans. I'm not the American government. It's the American government's job to worry about somebody who's not an American citizen and is an American citizen. What my job as a human is to care about other humans. And what you're saying is really hurtful towards other humans. And I don't tolerate that in my shop. So yeah, if you're worried about your First Amendment, you're not going to be talking about that in my shop. And I think that that's kind of the mentality that I want to see more out of people is like, you care about your neighbors because they're your neighbors. You don't necessarily worry about the semantics around who your neighbors are. Those are the people that if you're in a situation that are immediately there available to help you too. Your neighbors are your community, whether you chose them or not. They're your community.
Yeah, my it's so funny. My priest when I go to confession, and I that's what I end up confessing. I'm like, man, it's like uh there somebody was should have gotten the death penalty and they didn't get the death penalty. There was that was one of the things because we when they convicted the guy who killed all the people at King Soopers here a few years ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so they convicted him, but he didn't get the death penalty. And I'm like, man, I mean, it's like, he didn't show any compassion towards the victims who were just going to work or just going shopping or, there's and 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 there's so I was having a real problem with it. There's and it's so funny because none of the victims were, particularly close to me. And there's,
It was
somehow
just the grocery store you went to.
yeah, yeah. And so, and irregardless, there's, if my role is to love someone, how can, how can like a violent death be good for the other? How there's when we were talking about people seeking God and so on and so forth, there's Catholic social teaching is the reason that Catholics are against the Catholic Church is against the death penalty is because you know what, this person might change. They might change on their deathbed. They might get all the way to the very last day of their life, and then they're like, man, I really messed up, and I shouldn't have done this. And they can say, hey, look, I'm old. Can you get this? Can you get this letter? I just wrote this letter of apology to my victim. Can you get this letter to them? And they give you that letter on their deathbed. So their very last, act as a human being is contrition and sorrow and remorse for what they did. Well, that's a possibility. That's a thing. And every human has an inherent worth that means that at the very least, they deserve to live. Yeah, and and that's where that's the faith that I found. And it's weird that it took me decades, to find that faith. And I believe that is the true faith of Jesus. That's what Jesus taught us to do. He was, there's, so anyway.
Well, let's end on some sweet notes because that seems to be a bit positive for our heavy
What's for
topics back
dessert?
in the second season. So we're gonna try and end our episodes moving forward with something a little bit happy, give you a little bit of a happy sandwich. So earlier you had mentioned that there were some new things with AI that you were doing. What were you talking about?
Yeah, so I was just looking at AI Actually, the CEO, Arian, I can't remember his last name, the CEO of Perplexity, was giving a talk at Oxford University.
Is this
And
when
people,
he announced the browser that they were wanting to come out with?
yeah, I've got it. I can send you an invitation if you'd like.
Yeah.
I will. I'll send you an invitation. But so he was, people were asking questions. They're like, "What's your core principles?" And this guy came back and back and back to the point to where we want to be the platform, the AI platform that is about finding the truth and and uh, and having credibility. So that's the reason why they put citations on everything. And if you ask them a question and there's no information about it, they'll come back and they'll be like, "Well, we can't find any information about that, but this is what logic says about that particular thing." So so uh, for me as a researcher, Perplexity is a really great tool because it's not that they're looking for some existential truth. You want the answer to be right. That's the kind of truth
Right.
that they're talking about. So that
You want
so
tangible facts.
yeah, I don't want to cite something that they give me in a solution and then find out that the whole thing was just a hallucination of AI
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's not. So I mean that's so if you're a student who's researching, if you're a researcher who's writing peer-reviewed papers and you don't want to get caught with your pants down and so on and so forth, Perplexity is a really, really, really great tool. I think Chat GPT is, if you are an innovator and you want to be creative,
It
um,
is great for that,
that's
which
exactly
is
right.
why I use it.
Yeah. But if you're a member of a business team and the
You're going to use
majority of
Copilot
your
because it's built into Microsoft solutions. So I've been talking in the shop with people about the way that I use AI and the way that I'm recognizing it. And what I'm starting to understand is that the different companies are building different solutions. So ChatGPT is fantastic for if you don't want it to replace Google. If what you're really trying to do is get the most out of yourself, then that thing is going to really spark some creativity if you know how to use it properly and it can understand other systems in a creative way that you can bounce back and forth. But then if you go over to Google and what they're doing with Gemini, it's amazing because so many people have had Google products for their entire existence at this point that you have integration into products that people have been using for decades. So it's AI integration into your life already. And it's the exact same thing with Microsoft, but it's for professionals instead of individuals. Grok is a phenomenal platform if you want an echo chamber of the people that are on it, or if you want to get a consensus of the people who are on that platform. I like the intro for today that I've been working with the AI video. So now that I've been watching all of these AI video crap videos that just keep showing up on my feed, I've been curious of like, at what point am I going to get interested enough to actually create AI video content? And after I got the theme song finished up and actual pianist, actual composer, and I'm putting together a demo episode, I'm like, oh, I have like 25 seconds of blank space. I need to do something. Okay, well, I guess this is my opportunity that I need to learn AI video. And every single thing that I'm doing is an opportunity to learn something new. So, like, I wanted to learn image generation. Okay, combine my barbershop with the tarot cards. I understand both of these concepts. I can create something and learn how to build it. But it's this messy process of learning whatever that skill in AI is, how it's supposed to be used specifically, And then you have to look like a toddler finger painting until you can get to a point where you're making things that look. I deleted it. I really wish that I hadn't deleted it. The first video that got generated was so absolute garbage. And I was on one of my TikTok live streams and I was so excited. And I was like, "You guys, I'm so excited. I'm making my first AI video. Here's me watching it for the first time. Oh my god, this is horrible." Yeah, it looked like finger paintings. So anyways, I think that it's interesting now because I'm understanding how the AI in Pika works, but I'm collaborating with ChatGPT because I need ChatGPT to generate images and help me create the prompts because Pika, I only have so many prompts that I can use for how much that you spend on a month for a professional account. And if you just keep prompting and prompting and prompting and prompting and prompting, like you can in ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, you're eventually going to run out of your tokens and you've used your monthly capacity. So it's weird how everything is becoming curated solutions for individual things.
Yeah, there's so like the the Bible study software that I use is called Logos, and it's got an AI also. But the interesting thing about it is it only searches my library because I buy the books from them, which might
Yeah, you
not
were telling
sound
me about
like.
this.
I mean, I got almost 7,800 books in my theological library that I've purchased. They're my books, ebooks, and so that's a huge library. But I can, rather than having to like, oh, remember what book this is about or to search through, and read every book on this particular topic or whatever, I can just go to the AI and tell it to search my books and, and it will tell me where I can find that information from all of my books. So I don't have to worry about it going out to the internet. I don't have to worry about it going to anything else. I can even limit it. I can make a collection of 5 books if I don't want to have too many things and then just say only search this collection so that I can use those books for my citations. So, like you get an assignment, it's like, oh, you've got to have 12 sources for your citations. Well, then I can make a collection of just 12 books and have it look in just those 12 books and find the information that I need. So I'm not my bibliographies aren't like 16 pages or whatever. So
Yeah,
it's I think what I'm learning about AI is that AI is not going to be like one solution for everything. You're going to have an AI that your humanoid robot is going to be one AI, and your car is going to be another AI,
yep.
and your oven is going to be another AI, and yeah, so it's like I just got these new Meta Ray-Ban glasses that
Yeah, yeah. You've been posting a lot with those.
yeah, so they're they've got a camera in them and they've got speakers so like I was playing with them the other day. I can do live translation. So if I'm talking with somebody who only speaks Spanish and I don't speak any Spanish, I can just say hey Meta, start live translation, and it will translate in my ears everything they say from Spanish into English.
That
Absolutely
is
fascinating.
insane.
There's
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things, and one of the other ways that people who have very low vision use is they can go into a store. Somebody who's having to use a cane or whatever, they can say, "Hey Meta, look at this shelf and tell me what I see." So you don't even see. It's like, oh, you're looking at cereal.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Do you see Captain Crunch? Yes, Captain Crunch is to your left or whatever. So what a fantastic AI, and
Yeah.
even I'll throw credit where credit's due. Even Elon Musk there's I mean, he's got like 12 people who already have Neuralinks planted in their brain.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
they're
it
like,
went so much faster than I was expecting it to.
yeah, they're playing video games.
Yeah.
People who are totally paralyzed, can't move, at all. And they're able to type. They're able to communicate with people. They literally, got online and were playing video games with each other. And they're like, they're shoot up games. And they're like, oh, you shot me in the face. And I'm like, and there's again, it goes back to, you were talking about joy. I mean, that the joy that you give a person who in their wildest dreams didn't think that they would ever play a video game again,
Yep.
because you got to be able to use the controller. And now they can play that, and not just play a game by themselves. They can interact with other people and communicate with other people in ways that when I looked at it, I was just like, wow, this is really spectacular. This is something that's stellar. Um, so anyway, yeah, there's
Uh,
so
Rick
AIs are
Rubin
going to
was
be
on a.
all over. Say again.
Oh, say that again.
I was just like, AIs. I think AI is is going to be the operating system of life, and we're just
Um,
going to have to figure out how to interact with a wide array of intelligence. Some of the intelligence is going to be biological intelligence. Some of the intelligence is going to be artificial intelligence, and some of the intelligence is probably going to be some mix of both. And that's what I think the future is going to be.
there's a Rick Rubin is the American producer who had made Johnny Cash's cover of "Hurt,"
Yeah,
and he had gone on a podcast about a month or two back, and he was talking about how if you look at musicians in the early world of recording in American music, it was trained elitists that trained other people how to make quality polished music. And then at some point, punk rock came around and said, "We got three chords. We don't need your lessons. We've got it from here. We'll figure it out." And he's like, "Punk rock is what really made music music. That was the point of creativity." And now what you have with AI is the same punk rock revolution. You have this whole capability of being a DIYer, and you can do whatever you want to do. And what's interesting is the more you learn about it, the more you realize it's capable of doing, and the more you realize that there's been this whole foundation that's been built leading up to it. So there's been this thing that I did in the last week that I kind of had a realization that, oh, I have a smart body weight scale that measures all my biometrics. I can just get a smart nutritional scale that measures all the nutritional data of everything that I'm eating too. And then I have raw data of what my body is, and then raw data of what my body consumes. So I set up this program where I am feeding it information every Monday of my biometric PDF that gets exported from my smart scale, as well as a picture of the front of my body, the profile, and my back. It analyzes what my body measurements are in comparison to what the picture is showing it I physically am. And then every morning I tell it what I ate the day before. And then I ask it to build a workout plan for me based off of what my goals are, which is to put on like 15 pounds in the next year and maintain the muscle mass. I don't actually think I'm going to put on 15 pounds. But the thing that's interesting here is I now have a complete physical trainer program. I have a dietitian program, and it's curated and catered to me directly. And it's doing all the things that I want to make sure that I'm motivated in the way that I know that I stay motivated. So it's going to be more successful than if I went and paid somebody money because I found the thing that makes me want to do it. And I think that these are the fun little things that I'm doing right now to realize, like, oh, these projects connect together. Like, I have a dietitian, I have a scientist, and I have a physical trainer. If I'm not necessarily considering it to be AI, but I have a project manager and a team, it becomes so much easier to realize, oh, I need to set up this employee this way. I need to set up this employee this way. I need to set up this task this way. And yeah, it just becomes a little bit of a new way of taking an approach into every single thing that I do after. And it just keeps getting better and better and better.
Yeah, it's. I was thinking about Roombas the other day. So like we think that the home robot is the Roomba, which is a really dumb robot. I mean, all it does is it like goes this way, bumps into something, goes that way, bumps into something, and it just assumes that by the law of probability, it's probably going to vacuum the entire floor.
Right.
Over there's and but we don't think of it as being like saying to a humanoid robot, vacuum the house. I'm leaving, and I want you to vacuum the house while I'm gone. Yeah, there's and the humanoid robot, and then you also say, "Oh, by the way, can you wash the windows in the living room because I'm having a party tomorrow, and I need you to make a menu for the party. Go to the grocery store website and order all the groceries that we need for the party tomorrow night." And to expect that Roomba, that robot, that humanoid robot that you're talking to, is going to do all of those things on your behalf while you're gone. And it's there's the yeah, I almost started feeling compassion because I was like, I was going back to in American history and the period of chattel slavery, where we owned human beings and we would just make those human beings do whatever we didn't want to do, but we needed to get done.
Yeah. And we're basically creating the exact same thing, but in a way where we can technically not feel guilty about it.
yeah, yeah. There's, but we, but it's a weird thing where it's like, oh, you mean I'm gonna have this other humanoid that
Yeah.
I can have do things for me. It can change the oil in my car. It can, there's all the things. It can drive my car to the shop and have it detailed. It can do all
Yeah.
those
And I
things.
promise you, I know what I'm naming every single one of them. And Haley is going to hate every single one of them because we just got a Traeger, and you can name the Traeger in the Wi-Fi app. And I was like, oh, this is perfect because it's just a smoker and it's just full of hash. So I'm just going to name it the crematorium. And now I get little notifications on my phone that says the crematorium is done preheating.
That's hilarious. There's when you were sending me the text messages this morning. Meta AI is in my glasses, so it's like it says Sebastian twice. So it's like you've got two messages from Christopher Sebastian Lee, and I'm like, read the messages. Christopher Sebastian Lee says.
Fantastic.
So it's funny. There's oh, by the way, Meta is the only AI that I've done that I'm like, it can't do anything well. It is really horrible. It is the worst AI in all of AIdom.
No, I think that what Meta's real benefit is going to be is products and advertisement. Like I'm walking into a space and I recognize these products because a fuck ton of these advertisers pay me to know these products. And I will be able to quickly advertise, oh, yes, that is Captain Crunch a little bit to your left. It's right next to the box of cereal, of Cheerios, like some kind of subtle thing where there's going to be advertisement because it's all product placement, which makes sense for them. That's their business model.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking when I got the glasses, I thought it was going to be more capable than it is, but it's not very capable at all. But but then I started thinking it's like, well, they're invested though, and they're like poaching all this talent. So maybe it's going to be different in a year.
Their Orion glasses, that's what I'm waiting for. Their $10,000 glasses that they announced last year, they are so close to coming out with Tony Stark glasses. And I guarantee that the first couple of generations are going to be unaffordable. But I think by the time that I'm 50, it will be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a space that is growing, and there's I don't think anybody a year ago would have thought that AI is doing the things that it is now.
No,
Um,
not even a little.
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what it's like next year.
So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and say that our connection issues that nobody else can see is enough for me to say that we should probably wrap up the show for tonight. But I'm also going to say, hey, we're back. We're back from break. It's season two.
Season two.
Thanks Thanks so much again for joining us. And as always, if you know anyone in your life who needs some kind of an example of people who can disagree and be on different sides of the ideological spectrum, but still be able to have a good conversation and respect with one another after the fact, please share this podcast with your friends and family. We would absolutely love that, and it helps grow our community. Other things that help us grow our community is if you can leave us reviews on Spotify or YouTube or Amazon Music. And while you're out there, you can follow us if you're not already doing that. We're also over on Instagram and X as Supper Talk. We've got a bunch of the socials you can find us, but we will be posting our episodes every Sunday, so be on the lookout.
Take care, y'all. See you soon.